years old when I remember feeling it for the very first time. I was in the back of a concert hall listening to my father sing. Now, my dad's been a singer his whole life, and his voice has actually been the soundtrack to my whole childhood, my whole life, and so I really thought I knew his voice. This time it was different. As he reached the highest note in his solo, his eyebrows rose and it looked like his whole body was about to levitate. And I remember feeling something in my throat. It felt like I was about to cry, but I wasn't sad. And I wasn't quite joyful either, but the pride I felt for my dad was so tangible. I felt like I could touch it. And I wasn't alone. My mom was sitting next to me and she was completely still. My sister, utterly silent. And everyone in this auditorium, we were held together by this brief, impossible moment. And then it was over. The applause, the return to normal. That feeling, I didn't have a word for that feeling at the time. But I realize now that I've unconsciously chased that feeling the rest of my life. It is a feeling that is so incredibly important to the human experience. And not only that, it's a feeling we need now, at this time, on this planet, more than ever. But before I tell you what this feeling is, I want to tell you how I forgot all about this feeling. Because it's really, really easy to forget about feelings when the world is quite literally on fire. We are in the middle of what we call a polycrisis. It's not just one crisis or two crises, it is a bunch of crises all intertangled, all connected to each other. Now, for the last 15 years, I've been working at the intersection of climate and social change. And I remember at the beginning of this really messy intersection, I remember my desire to act. Let's do something now. Let's figure out the most effective way to figure this out. This desire to act led me to get really good at mapping problems, at figuring out what is the solution, the most effective solution. It led me to this logic. If we can understand the problem, really understand it, communicate the problem, then everyone will act. That's not just my logic, that's the logic of most programs, organizations I've worked with. It is a linear logic that's based on a linear way of thinking. Now, understanding the problem is not our problem. We have more than enough data at our hands. Actually, I can ask all of you to pull out your phones, ask your favorite AI, what is the solution to the polycrisis, and it will give you an evidence-based strategy to solving it. Facts are not our issue. We are drowning in data. We are paralyzed by the amount of data we have access to, and nothing has changed. So what are we missing? I want to take you back in time inside a garment factory I was working in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. This is a garment factory that produces for some of the biggest fast fashion brands in the world, some of which we might all own or even be wearing today. I had been working across the region leading advocacy for human and environmental rights in this industry, and it's one of the most polluting, most exploitative industries on the planet. And while I was working there, an artist friend, Benjamin Van Wong, he approached me and he said, "Laura, what if we weren't to create another piece of data, another impact report? What if we create something large scale, something immersive?" I said, "Okay, I haven't tried that before, let's try that." And so we did. We created the first installation that I've ever partaken in inside that garment factory. It talked about textile waste. We did another one in Egypt called The Tallest Closet in the World that spoke about overconsumption, featuring all of the clothing that we'll wear in a lifetime. We also took this to Singapore, where we focused on plastic waste. And each and every time something happened, I noticed people walk through these installations and feel emotions that I'm not usually met with when I talk about these topics. Usually I'm met with fear, with guilt, with complete overwhelm. But this time, I noticed people feel something different. I noticed a shift. Not because people learned something new, but because they felt a connection to it. And then it hit me. That feeling I had felt before. In fact, I remember feeling that for the very first time at 9 years old in the back of an auditorium. And I hadn't forgotten that feeling because it wasn't important. I had forgotten it because I believed that to be useful on the planet right now, there's no room for that feeling. It's the same feeling you might experience when I tell you that there are octopi on the bottom of the ocean floor that can actually dream. That there are trees that can warn each other of danger by hidden underground networks. It's the emotion that lives in the brilliance of 8 astronauts returning safely to Earth after one of the furthest journeys in 50 years. It's also the emotion you might feel just as fiercely in the courage of people who have left their home, left war, with nothing but each other. That feeling is awe. And my favorite definition of awe comes from Professor Dr. Keltner from UC Berkeley. He's an awe researcher, and he says that awe is being in the presence of something vast, something that transcends our understanding of reality. Awe reminds us that we don't know everything, that there is mystery in this world, and that there are dimensions to our existence that don't fit on a spreadsheet and don't fit in an impact report. That unknowing, that mystery can be awesome, but it can also be awful. Awe is this weird mix of both those things. And in that moment of awe, something really cool happens. It reorients our focus. We think about me most of the time, but when we're in awe, we actually start thinking about we. We can't help it. Our egos start to shrink. It's a self-transcendent emotion. You can start feeling how you're connected to other people, how you're connected to the wider web of the universe. You're even feeling a connection to places you've never been, generations you'll never meet. Why that's so important is because our polycrisis is a crisis of broken relationships. We are in this mess because we've severed our relationships to each other, to the living world, to the more than human world. It is so much easier to exploit, to commercialize, to waste, to ignore something that you just don't have a relationship with. In 2015, the United Nations member states adopted 17 goals. These were 17 goals to get us where we needed to go, to save the planet. It gave us this really universal language to talk about change-making, to say there's 17 things we really need to do. It was easy, but it left out something really crucial. Because those goals actually look like this. There are relationships between each block. You can't talk about ending poverty without talking about reducing gender inequality. You can't talk about that without talking about education, and so on and so forth. There is nothing isolated. There is no clear beginning or end. It's what we call a system. And there's something I love, which is called systems thinking, which is basically looking at this whole map and going, okay, how does this work? Where are the tension points? How do things affect each other? And when you take a step back and you really look at it, there aren't 17 goals. It's just one big thing. And there's one thing I know for sure. You can't solve a relationship, all these relationships, by just analyzing it from above. In 1987, a writer named Frank White, he interviewed astronauts that just came back to Earth. And what he found was so consistent and so striking that he gave it a name. He called it the overview effect. It's basically the moment you see Earth from way up there in the nothingness of space, you realize that all of my problems are not just my problems, they're all our problems. And all of those divisions that we organize our life in, they stop making sense. From that distance, the polycrisis, All of it, every entangled bit looks like what it is, just one thing. And when you have a knot like this is a piece of string deeply knotted together, you can stare at a knot. You can stare at it from every single angle and try to figure out how do we untangle this knot? But the truth is, sometimes you have to close your eyes and you have to feel through the tension. Where does it give? Where is there opportunity for a little wiggle room? Where is there tension? Now, I'm not trying to oversimplify a planetary crisis with a piece of string, but what I am saying is that maybe we need something more than just knowledge and data. Maybe we need knowledge of a different kind. Maybe we need systems feeling. The experience of collectively feeling how we're all connected to this big web. Systems feeling is not a methodology, it's not a framework, it's a capacity. It's a capacity that I think we've mostly forgotten how to do. I want to be clear, systems feeling is nothing new, nobody invented this, but I'm giving it these words because I want us to remember this capacity. This capacity is rooted in indigenous wisdom. It's rooted in wisdom like Mitakoyo Yasin, the idea that we are all related. And when I say we, not just people, the more than human world. Wisdom like Ubuntu, the idea that I exist because we exist. Or Dukas, the Gaelic philosophy that reminds us that we're not just from a place, we are of a place, and when we move, we bring that place and ancestry with us. In indigenous ways of knowing, we only understand something when you understand it with 4 parts of yourself: your mind, your body, your emotion, and your spirit. But it's funny, when we talk about knowledge, we only talk about our minds. Systems thinking and systems feeling are not opposites, they're not competitors. It's the other half of intelligence that modernity told us it's too soft, it's too subjective, it's not unscientific, it's just, don't use it. So we separated them. And in doing so, we actually cut off our capacity to truly know something. We're seeing the knot, but we're not feeling where it's pulling. Trying to think our way through this polycrisis without feeling is not discipline. It's amputation. And it's taken me a very long time to realize that. There is knowledge, there's even wisdom in how we think through something, how we feel through something. And I'm here to say that I think awe can be a doorway. It's an invitation. Awe is not going to save us. Feelings are not going to save us. But what I am saying is this. Change does not happen when we understand something. Change happens when we feel connected. Philosopher Bayo Akomolafe says, "These times are urgent. We must slow down." And I want to add to that and say, we must slow down enough to remember awe. Remember how that feels like. And you don't have to go to space. You can see that in a sunset. You can feel it in a conversation with a stranger. Awe is calling us back into relationship. And this is precisely what no algorithm, no AI can replicate. It's the one form of intelligence we cannot afford to lose. And that intelligence can only be simulated in a machine. But it does exist right now in this room. So I invite you all to take a deep breath with me. Please do it together. In that breath, we are feeling an interconnection to a tree in a forest producing oxygen somewhere. Do you feel it? Thank you.